Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1020 of our daily content grind, and today we have something of a breaking news story to cover first. So, Hasbro actually announced its San Diego Comic-Con toy for the year. One of them at least, who knows how many they've got down the pipe, but we know at least a 2-pack that we will be able to obtain, and it is an Orion Pax vs. Megatron set based in IDW 1.0's backstory, where Megatron was a miner and Optimus Prime was a beat cop. So, Coptimus Prime is finally getting a toy. It's using the Gamer Edition Optimus Prime mold in order to create it, and that's a really good toy. So, I'm very happy to see that. Meanwhile, Megatron is Siege Megatron. Again. It seems to be a repaint of the minor version they've already done of this mold, with a few new weapons thrown in, because this is supposed to represent when he was a gladiator. And yeah, this kind of sparked off a little thing. Of amazement and bewilderment, because this mold will not go away. It's been 5 years, almost 6 now, and the mold is still getting used, and it's just, it's hilarious. It's like kind of sad, kind of hilarious. So I decided to switch gears today, and instead of my initial plan, which was going to be another Earthspark episode review, let's actually discuss this mold, and we'll discuss the many uses of this mold, and we'll see just how much it stacks up compared to some of the other modern overused molds that there are today. Because, oh my god, Hasbro is kind of losing their minds over this. So we start with the Siege Megatron, the original version of it, and this toy is okay, alright? So as a Cybertronian Megatron, it's fine. I do like that, it has his sword from his original G1 toy, the one that I don't believe was released in the US. Cool throwback, and it incorporates into his vehicle mode, which is fine. Yeah, and he gets his traditional cannon as well. The stock photographer here didn't know how the cannon was used, but, that's how it goes. Now, as a part of Siege, there's a lot of battle damage scuff paint all over this toy. Do you want a little bit more? Well, don't worry, Netflix has you covered. They did an even more damaged version of this Megatron toy, threw in a couple of Battle Masters while they were at it. But overall, it's just a little bit shinier and a little bit more scratched up by intention. So, if you wanted something even more scuffed, don't worry, there's the spoiler box version, where you have a lot more heavy shading, you have much heavier scratches, and even some bullet wounds in this one. Yeah, with a few extra accessories, just a few extra blast effects too, to kind of emphasize he's getting shot up. Do you want it even more scuffed? Takara took a stab at this mold too. So they did this for their premium version, and this is about as accurate as that Netflix design goes. If you're trying to match that Netflix look, this is the one that comes the closest. It's fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me just how scuffed up this mold can look, and how many times they made it look scuffed. Now, if you want a clean version, you have to get the 35th anniversary version, but even that one is too clean, because it's sparkly and shiny clean. They added all the animation shading to it, which I think looks really, really cool, but hilarious to me that for a long, long time, this was about the only way to get this mold in G1 Megatron look and still have clean deco. For some reason, they just kept adding battle damage to it. Even when they retooled it for Earthrise, Megatron still had some scuff to him. Here is a stock photography, and unfortunately, I should have gotten a better photo for this. I didn't realize it was missing. This is the render. This is not the final deco. The final deco has that same, or at least very similar, weathering down to the lower legs. And it's one of the very few Earthrise toys to even do that, so it throws everything off, and I hate it. No, if we wanted a clean G1 Megs, you had to wait until the recent dramatic capture version, where a lot of shiny silver paint went into the toy and no battle damage deco whatsoever. Took a long freaking time to get there, but we finally made it. Oh boy. It's a pretty toy. You can definitely tell the mold has been used very, very well. There are some loose parts on it. It's poor knees, but at the very least, you actually have a clean-looking G1 Megatron on a shelf now, finally. They did get a little bit creative with this one from time to time, though. There is the Combat Hero Megatron done in the G2 color scheme that never came out. It's a bizarre-looking Megatron with his jungle camo and his white helmet. A little bit striking with the face, but otherwise just an odd color to see Megatron in. We also have the G2 coloring. The G2 colors never work on a body that isn't designed to have a chest, popping forward. Flat-chested G2 Megatron is just wrong. It's just wrong. It's just not how it's supposed to look. I mean, it's cool to get the deco out. The deco is iconic, but it's just the wrong mold to do it to. Just because his alt mode's a tank doesn't mean it's going to be correct. I think the most ambitious retool was the Shattered Glass version. And technically, this one isn't even a retool. This is the Siege version of the toy again. However, they've thrown on a whole bunch of extra parts to actually make it look like, not just look like Energon Megatron to an extent, but also to redo his vehicle into a very, very weird attempt at Energon Megatron's jet mode. It's a very, very bizarre release. It's basically a tank with wings and a nose cone, but they tried to make it work. I will commend them for the effort that went into it. Though there is another retool with a lot of effort into it, and that is the first minor Megatron from the Rise of Tyranny 2-pack. This one is at least very distinct from the others. You know, we've seen a swath of different grays here. This one goes for the dark gunmetal. It looks much more interesting, hits that minor Megatron look really, really well. Seems to be the basis for the one we're getting now from the Fractured Friendship 2-pack. That's 12 uses. This mold is 5 years old, and they've already put it through the ringer 12 times. Now, that number kind of got me curious of what else has been run through that many times, and what other recent molds have been just abused at this point by Hasbro and milked completely dry. And of course, Seekers are the first thing you think of, right? It's always going to be a Seeker that's going to be the most overused mold, obviously. You know, I replied to this on Twitter. I posted the joke on Twitter, and someone used the hanging meme of something like first time, and it was referencing the Seeker mold. So let's put that to the test, shall we? We've got our Earthrise Starscream here in his traditional classic deco, but of course we also have his Coronation version, which is a separate release. There are new parts, not only accessory-wise, but also part-wise, assembly-wise. There's different deco. We have Thundercracker. Okay, fine. We get all the standard stuff out of the way, right? So we get Thundercracker and we get Skywarp. And then of course we need the Coneheads. Now, the release of these was all chaotic. You were lucky if you got your hands on all 6 the first round through, because some of these were really annoying to get. But yes, Ramjet also exists as well. So does Thrust, obviously. And then Dirge. Dirge is a little bit funky. I think so is Ramjet too, because their re-releases actually are technically redecos, because the wings on the original releases are painted, the new ones are molded, but they are counted as a package refresh. So for the sake of trying to keep this to just pure genuine reuses, repaints, retools, I'm counting each as one. So a little bit of weird credit here. Let's get into some of the weird ones, though, because there are plenty of weird releases. For starters, G2 Ramjet. I also love how these two are almost in identical poses. I love that, we're running out of ideas for how to pose these things. We've posed so many of these Seekers at this point. We're just going to copy the same one over and over and just hope nobody notices. But obviously, yeah, that's an easy one to do. The G2 color scheme is very distinct, very unique. No, it's not Slipstream. Believe it or not. There's also Sandstorm, the unreleased Generation 2 deco that they decided to bring back. I thought that was a really cool idea. Still wanted that Black Death Star Scream, the one that was eventually named Blackout. Did not get that one yet. Kind of hoping we don't. This mold's had it. Speaking of unreleased G2, that's where Cloud Cover comes from as well, from the Toxitron collection. That's the whole thing of Toxitron, unreleased G2 colors. The inevitable Ghost Starscream was recently released as part of Beast Wars again, 2-packed in with a Decepticon branded Waspinator to represent the Possession episode. You knew a Ghost Starscream was inevitable on this one. You also know that inevitably I refuse to touch this thing for very obvious reasons. It has to be done, but you know what? It doesn't have to be bought. Much as I like the Waspinator in that set better than the Starscream, it actually bugs me. That's not a pun because it's Waspinator. I'm moving on now. This was part of the Troop Builder 4-pack. This is just Decepticon Seeker. No, it's not Thundercracker again. I didn't put him in twice. No, this was supposed to be representing the generic Seekers from the early More Than Meets the Eye episodes of G1. But those they really should have leaned more into the purple, because there are like lavender colored Seekers in that in those episodes. You could get away with that as just a generic Decepticon, but for some reason it just comes across as a slightly paler color of Thundercracker, and that is a very weird call. I almost feel like they just got the wrong Pantone back. Like the factory just gave them the wrong color and they didn't have time to switch it. Like that's what it comes across as, because this just didn't look distinct enough. This is just, I don't know, it's Thundercracker again. But that still finishes us off for that Seeker mold, which brings us to exactly 12 uses. So the exact same number as the Megatron. Now, it did that in one less year, because this is Earthrise and not Siege. And it did take about as much remolding, because that Megatron toy did get quite a bit of extra remolding and quite a lot of extra parts over the years. So they're about on par right now. The difference here is that obviously the Seekers have far more variation, because it's all different characters, all different colors, lots of different parts, and the Megatrons are just kind of Megatrons. Most of them are just gray. Also, the Seeker mold has, of course, far more chances to expand even further. Blackout, for instance, can still be done. We haven't done that. We have not done a proper Sunstorm or Acid Storm from this mold yet. We also have not done an Action Master Thundercracker, which you know people would buy. I'm surprised it wasn't in the Toxitron collection. So, if we're talking about this, I mean, it's unreleased G2 stuff. You know what I mean? It would have fit in. Do it as like a Hasbro Pulse beside it. That would have been perfect. Point being, 12 to 12. So I started looking at other molds, and one of the other molds that came to mind was the Cliffjumper figure, because I just remember seeing them do that one over and over and over and over and over. So we have the Siege version here. Whatever you want to say about the part forming, yeah, we're going to have a lot of bazookas by the time this list is done, by the way. Of course, the 86 version is just the exact same figure in a more animation accurate deco. No translucent plastic, which means it's my preferred version. Hubcap came out. They actually remembered that Hubcap existed. I didn't think the day would come, but here we are. And of course, if they're going to do that, of course, they're just going to switch the heads and make a Bumblebee as well. This is that super awkward Bumblebee from one of the multi-packs where it's using the Cliffjumper body, but it's got the Bumblebee head on it. Because Volkswagen's weird about how they let them license the Volkswagen Beetle. Some weird thing, and apparently that was a very limited license because they only got to use it twice. They didn't get to use it for Bug Bite, which would have been a little bit more accurate, but at least Bug Bite does exist. We've got more G1 GoBots coming out, so good of him to make an appearance. I'm sure everyone's got theirs. We're just waiting just waiting for the rest of the GoBots to arrive. Also, of course, we did Shattered Glass Gold Bug. Again, it's just the Cliff Jumper version of the mold. New head though. Yeah, and then of course there's the Volkswagen version, the Volkswagen Bumblebee, the proper Netflix one. And then of course we got to do a gold bug out of that one using the Shattered Glass head and a few other weird parts. Like there's actually a lot of weird like Frankensteining going on to make that toy happen. It's actually a little bit more interesting than you would think. There's like 3 molds going into making this figure possible. And to my surprise, that is it. You know, we stopped at 8 at that mold, even though there's obvious places to go. I mean, of course, they could just keep releasing Bumblebees and they'd keep selling. And then, you know, we still haven't gotten, for instance, Glyph and Tap Out. Where are they? That's the shocking one to me. We never got a Glyph and a Tap Out. How did that happen? So, that mold came up short at 8. So then I started thinking, what about the Prowl mold? Because that one got used a lot. I mean, it's the 3 Datsuns plus Barricade, plus the Earth versions, and then a few other really random ones they did. There's got to be a lot of those. Here's the problem. These are different molds. So even though this looks like it came from the same mold, and they do share a transformation scheme, all the parts are completely new. So I can't combine the Siege and the Earthrise versions of these molds into one run. You know, it's not fair. So at this point, I was thinking like, okay, there's got to be another one because there's just some molds have been used to death. You know, but like it's weird to me to think that like something could actually top a Seeker for how many times it got used. And then I remembered Sideswipe. Oh, did I remember Sideswipe? Shall we go through these really quick? Because we don't need to hang on all of them for too long. The video's already going pretty long as it is. Here's the Siege version. Siege version gets retooled, of course, into Red Alert. And then, of course, G2 Sideswipe. Oh, I'm sorry, Covert Clone Sideswipe. Yeah, I don't understand that decision either. They did Tiger Track, who's often overlooked, but it does allow us to have a yellow member of our Sideswipe Sentai. They also did Deep Cover. And the weird thing about doing Deep Cover, this was a Selects release, but no, we got to put Deep Cover out at a store. So what do? We put him in the Netflix series in blue. We flipped his colors. See, it's weird to me. Like, we flip colors on Sideswipe, you know, to like his G2 version, and it's different versions. So I guess that, you know, this is technically the same guy. So I guess it counts if this G2 Deep Cover. The reason they flipped the colors is because they wanted the burn battle damage on the body the way a lot of the other Netflix Siege figures had, but you can't add burns to a black figure. So they had to flip him to blue. But it gives us our Blue Ranger for the Sentai team. So I guess it's all good, right? Netflix also got its own version of Red Alert with all the extra battle damage attached to it. And then, yeah, they did a Netflix Sideswipe as well as the really heavily weathered. But you can't stop it there, can you? You can't stop it there. Everything about Siege was, when are we getting the Earth versions? Well, you had to get a weird 2-pack in order to get Sideswipes, but it does exist. So that one, again, it's a retool. We continue this trend. Here's Kingdom Red Alert. That one was actually retail release after the original one was Walgreens exclusive, and the second was a Walmart exclusive. This one you could just find anywhere. So, you Red Alert fans finally had an easy time about it. Oh, but Walmart's not done. Walmart's not done. They want to keep burying this mold, so we did Clamp Down as well. Still, it's still weird. This figure just kind of feels like Red Alert didn't dress properly that day. It's just kind of funny that way. We also have Sideswipe from the Toxitron collection in his incredibly vibrant eyesore of a G2 color scheme. Never saw this one in a store. Ironically, the only time I ever saw one of these is when someone sold this store one. Because the one Walmart in my area I never go to because it's too far away, that's where it showed up. Of course it did. We also got another retool to make him into Shattered Glass Sideswipe, with all the extra weapons, the extra scarring on the chest, etc. It's not the most extensive retool, though, because that honor goes to Gigawatt. And yes, this is still a retool. There are parts that survive from the original Sideswipe, so it still counts. Even though this is an exceptionally heavy retool, it's still technically the Sideswipe mold. That's 15. There's 15 iterations of the Sideswipe mold in this toy line already. That's kind of absurd. Actually, let me double check my count. 14. It's actually 14. Do you know why I miscounted and said 15? Because we're not done. We have the leaked listings for next year, which tells us we're getting an Armada Wheeljack. It's just a repaint of the Shattered Glass version, because of course they're not going to do that much retooling to it and only get one use out of it. It's Hasbro. If this video has proven anything, it's that they will use any excuse they can to repaint a figure and get another release out of it. So that is currently the king. Sideswipe by far here, the king of the modern molds with 15 uses. Now, as we've stated, the Seeker mold absolutely has a chance to keep up. And of course, it is a Seeker mold that holds the record for the most reuses at 31. And ironically, it's the original version of the mold that Earthrise Seeker is based on. So you know what? There's always a chance. And frankly, I think we're out of swipes once we get that last one out. But there you go. There's the running count of how ridiculous mold reusage is these days. You understand something here? I have named off almost 50 toys. Almost 50 toys mentioned in this video. Ultimately, only 4 molds. A lot of retooling, but in the end, 4 molds. It's just a little bit crazy these days. But that's how it goes. So, there's your tally for now. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.